Hey guys, Jake Roy back here, 90s Bball Cards. So today we're going to a card show. So there's a couple card shows near me and I've been meaning to get out to them more often. So today I've got an opportunity, I've got a little bit of time, an hour or two that I can get out there. So on the way to the Enfield card show right now. So I'm gonna do a little bit of filming, hopefully. I'll see how much I can get in there. I know some dealers sometimes are a little camera shy, so I'm not sure exactly what I'll be able to document, but we'll see what we can get, and hopefully we find some fire there. All right, so we're almost at the show. So a little bit. I know some people, there aren't shows. You might not have shows near you, or you, like me, sometimes don't have time to get out to shows. So I don't really know what to expect. I've been to the show a couple of times, predominantly vintage baseball, some modern baseball, and some modern football. Sorry for the the phone shaking a little bit here. We're still driving, but almost there. So not sure how much basketball there's going to be. I have been lucky with some dollar bins at times. Not expecting to really spend much, but you never know what you're going to find. So I'm going in there with like $50 on me. I'm not, again, expecting to spend much, if any. It's $1 to get in. Most of these are either free or they don't cost much to get in. But we'll see what we find. Hey, all right, so I'm back from the show. So wanted to give you guys a little recap of how the show went. It wasn't the best filming atmosphere, and we'll get into a little bit of why I think that was. But we got there right around 12 o'clock or so, so the show was scheduled to go from 9 to about 2 o'clock. So when I got there at 12, it was a little bit sparse in attendance. I don't know if it might have been busier later or earlier in the day. I know when I have gone in the past, I have gotten there earlier in the day, and it seemed like there was a little bit more activity there. But some of that could be due to the Super Bowl. Super Bowl weekend, a lot of people prepping for Super Bowl parties and whatnot. So it was the Saturday right before Super Bowl, and that could have played into some of the attendance. I know there was also a show nearby on Super Bowl Sunday earlier in the day, so I was kind of curious. I didn't go because I was busy with Super Bowl stuff, but I was curious what the attendance would look like there because of the Super Bowl. So an interesting timing to go to a show or to have a show right before the Super Bowl. But when I got there, met up with a friend, AJ.
What we do?
So it was nice to go around with him. He's a big sports fan, big Alabama fan. He actually got into a little bit of a discussion with somebody there. There is a Bill Belichick rookie card from Pro Set when he was coaching with the Cleveland Browns, and I was joking around with him that he should pick that up because he's the GOAT coach, and he said no, Saban's better. So, Patriots fans weren't too thrilled with that around, but definitely a lot of fun. Nobody takes anything personally at these events. So he was there, got to look around. He's not a big card collector, but he's definitely starting to learn a little bit more through some of what I share with him and through the channel and whatnot, which is great. And it was a lot of fun to have him there and kind of talk and walk around with him a little bit. So I showed you guys a little bit of what was there, but in case you couldn't kind of pick it up on the camera, lots of vintage baseball. That was definitely predominant. Lots of modern baseball. So baseball is definitely the dominant sport, which it really is the dominant sport in the hobby, in all honesty. There was a good amount of football, mostly modern football. Didn't see too much 90s or vintage football. Vintage football is a much smaller category of the vintage segment of sports cards anyway. And for basketball, there was pretty much no 90s. I didn't see any vintage. There was a good amount of modern, though, which is different than when I've gone in the past. In the past, I've gone and I haven't seen much of any basketball. I did see a little bit more 90s when I've gone previously, but a good amount of modern, a lot of Luka, a lot of Zion, a lot of Jason Tatum being in New England makes sense. A lot of Trae Young, a lot of Ja Morant. So kind of the last 2 years, 3 years of the top guys is a lot of what we're seeing. There was some LeBron there as well, a couple of Jordans, and with the tragedy surrounding Kobe and the plane crash, I was expecting to see some dealers kind of bringing out some Kobe's. I saw one guy who's almost exclusively a vintage baseball guy, with the exception of this one card. He had a Bowman's Best Kobe Bryant rookie, which he was telling me a story about. It was slabbed, and somehow the slab got damaged, and it got water damage on the card. So it was a BGS 9, and now with the water damage, definitely not. But he just wanted to bring it out, just kind of to have the conversation with people. But he wasn't looking to sell it because how do you value a water damaged card, right? So that was interesting. There was one guy who had some basketball stuff, and you might see it on the video I was looking through, and he had it sectioned off by player, really just the top players. He had a few Jordans. Most of them were Wizards Jordans, which don't really wet my whistle. There were a couple of early 90s, kind of more of the junk wax era, if you will, Jordan cards in there. And then he had some Kobe's, which were mostly early 2000s, which again, not really my wheelhouse, not stuff that I'm interested in. But it was interesting to see some of that stuff mixed in with LeBrons and Durant's and whatnot. So that was interesting. There were some bargain bins in, that's usually where I like to hone in on. And we'll talk a little bit about my strategy when I go to card shows in a little bit. But didn't find too much that really interested me. There was one guy who had a 97-98 row 0 Joe Smith card that was in a bargain bin. I was interested in looking at that, but as we'll get into right now, he started packing up a little bit early. And honestly, when I got there around 12ish, like I said, it seemed like the show was still going on, but people started packing up right around 1 o'clock, which I was a little bit surprised by, since it was going till 2. There were a few people who were definitely staying there the whole time, but by the time I kind of did my rounds, people started packing up. So if I wanted to go back and check things like that Joe Smith and what else that guy might have had, I don't know, because he'd already started packing up at that point. So a little bit disappointed by that. But what I usually like to do when I go to card shows, we can get into my strategy a little bit, really the smaller card shows, but even I did this when I was at the White Plains, the East Coast National, which I did a video on. What I like to do is I like to kind of make my round. I go through the whole show, take a look at who's there, what's there, and see what type of tables I might want to hone in on. If there's stuff in a bargain bin that I might want to look at, if there's a guy who has some basketball stuff. But if there's anything that catches my eye, I'll stop there really quickly. But usually I just like to do a quick round and then know the 2 or 3 tables I might want to focus my time on, go back to one of those first and start looking through whether it's a bargain bin, start looking at the stuff in the case, start discussing prices and stuff like that. So that's usually my strategy. Do a round, see what's there, and then go look at what you're interested in. But obviously that's a little bit easier for me if it's 90s basketball cards that I'm looking for and there's a much smaller segment of that show that's going to have that stuff. It's easier for me to just decide, okay, these are the 2 guys I'm going to focus on. Whereas if you're looking at vintage baseball, there's a lot more stuff to look at that might not be a good strategy for you. But that's what works for me. Going to the Nationals this year, I've never been. I know it's much bigger, it's monumentally bigger than any show I've been to, so I don't think that strategy is going to work too well. It might take me a day or 2 just to do that whole going through the rounds. So, I'm not really sure what my strategy is going to be there, but for these types of shows, that's my strategy, and that's what I'm going to continue using. That's what's worked for me. That's what I've had fun with. So when I go back to this show, maybe we'll have a little bit more time to do more of a true vlog type of an episode, and you can see a little bit more of my strategy, my method there. You did see me kind of filtering through a few of the bins, and that, is really just a quick way of me understanding what kind of stuff is there, if it's mostly stuff I'm going to be interested in, if it's not a lot of stuff I'm going to be interested in, or if it's just a mixed bag. And that's a way that I can quickly assess if it's a bargain bin worth me going through. And as you saw, I did see that Sam Mack sign of the times, which I do like. $1 for that card is a good price. And in all honesty, most of the time I would pick that up. But he was another guy that was packing up, so I didn't want to bother him. I'm not going to, waste a lot of time for a guy like Sam Mack on an auto. But that was kind of the way it went. As I was going through, I did get to pick up one item. So I picked up, you saw when I was at the East Coast National, I got some of the USA starting lineup figures. I love those. I've got some of those behind me here. So there's 2 sets of those with 5 players each. And then there was kind of an expansion pack, if you will, that had the 3 players that were added later. So you had Charles Barkley and Mitch Richmond, who were added a little bit later to the team, and then you had Gary Payton, who was an injury replacement for Glenn Robinson. So Glenn Robinson was originally picked for the team, had an injury, couldn't participate, so Gary Payton made that team. So they had a set with just those 3 players, and they're not very easy to find. It was kind of like a mail-in. I'm not exactly sure the logistics around how people got those, but they weren't readily available. So they're not easy to find. If you go on eBay right now, you're probably looking at, if you find a listing, somebody's going to be asking maybe $25, $20, something right around that range, which isn't a terrible price, but you will see, if you look at the completed listings, those usually go unsold. So those aren't really something I'm looking to pay a whole bunch of money for. A guy had one at the table and, wasn't doing a whole lot of activity there. So I asked him what he was asking for. He said $5. More than happy to spend that, so I got that. Which completes my set of those. So I've got all 13 of those figures. Again, most of those are behind me. A few of them I gave to my daughter so she could play with the basketball guys, as she calls them, which she loves doing. So that's something fun that we can do together. But that's the only purchase I had. Like I said, a couple of cards that I was interested in, but nothing too fancy. I did get in touch with one guy who, like I said at the beginning, was the guy who had the Kobe Bowman's Best. He's only vintage, and he had big signs saying he's buying more vintage. So I actually have a good amount of vintage of baseball and some football too that I was given by my uncle, and actually a fun story that I'll go into on a different video, but my grandparents gave me some as well. So that's stuff that I have. I've got about a dozen or so of those cards that look like they're in good shape, of star players, Mickey Mantle, Hank Aaron, those kind of guys, that I'm going to be sending to PSA very soon. So I'm going to do a separate video on that. I will do a video when I'm getting that submission ready. There's going to be some other things that aren't just vintage baseball. you know, some 90s stuff, as you can expect with me, and some modern stuff as well. So kind of a mixed bag submission that I'm going to be sending to PSA. So be on the lookout for that video, where I am going to be showing you the cards I'm sending to PSA. I'm going to show you how I've prepped those cards. It is my first PSA submission. I have done the BGS submission video in the past, but there's a lot of great resources out there that show you step by step how to prep a bunch of cards for PSA. So I've definitely learned from those guys, and I'm using a bulk service. So I'm not submitting these on my own. I'm going through a service, and I'll get into all that on the video, but it's going to be a bulk submission. So be on the lookout for that, and then obviously I'll do a video when they come back. Hopefully we get good results. And that guy that I was talking to is very interested in buying those. I'm honestly looking to sell those because not only do I have those, let's say, dozen or so cards that are going to PSA, I've also got another 200 or 300 of commons of all the same era of vintage stuff, 50s and 60s. So all stuff I'm going to be looking to hopefully move to him. Hopefully we can strike a deal. So it was good to get in touch with him. That was definitely a good positive from that experience there. So that's pretty much what we saw there. Again, a little disappointed with the kind of wrapping up early. Did have a good conversation with one guy who was all vintage or all modern basketball, but he said that his favorite player is Jordan. He collected football in the 90s, but that was some of the reason why he kind of got out of it, because he didn't collect his favorite player. So trying to explain to him that, you know, maybe he could check out the channel and see if maybe it sparks an interest for him to get some Jordan stuff or another player of the 90s, because Jordan stuff, as he was saying, has gone up astronomically, so it's kind of difficult for him to get right into that market. But he does have a pretty nice collection as it is that he was offering to sell, so I can only imagine what he has that he's not selling. One thing I almost forgot to mention, actually, on the USA figures, I did notice on the bottom corner of it, it said that it's appropriate for ages 4 to 104. So it kind of reminded me of the Nat King Cole Christmas song, you know, Merry Christmas to the kids from 1 to 92. So that was kind of funny, and I was sitting there talking with my brother about it, saying, well, what happens when I turn 105? Can I not play with these anymore? So maybe I'll make a video when if I am lucky enough to be 105, of me playing with those me playing with those figures. You know, kind of a little funny thing there. So I thought that was interesting. I'm not sure if maybe that was signifying that it was the 104th Olympics. I'm not exactly sure why they have 104 as the age limit on that product, but that was kind of something funny that I noticed. So interesting stuff there. So that's really all that we've got today for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed this little look into the card show. I know that some people don't have card shows near them, or maybe you haven't gone before, not really sure what to expect. So hopefully this gives you a little bit of an idea of what a small town card show would be. Let me know, question of the day in the comments below. Let me know what you think about a video like this, if you want me to do more vloggy type videos. Again, this wasn't really a true vlog because I couldn't do a lot of recording because people had closed up early. But if you'd like to see me do more vlog type stuff, I will try to get that incorporated at other shows. I'll try to go back to this one, maybe do something there. But drop that down in the comments what you'd like to see. If you'd like to see more card show type videos, I'd love to do that if that's something you're interested in. So let me know. As always, thanks for taking your time watching this video, sharing in this great hobby. If you're new here, please consider subscribing, hit the bell icon so you don't miss any videos in the future. Videos like this will drop on Wednesdays. Any bonus content will drop on Fridays. As always, if you're interested in merch like the hoodie that I'm wearing here, the link to the merch shop is down in the description. There's plenty of stuff there: mugs, pillows, phone cases, backpacks, t-shirts, you name it, it's probably in there with 90s Bball cards. So if you enjoy the channel, I would appreciate some support and you know, a way to kind of get the word out there with some of that merch. So that'd be great. As always, thanks. We'll talk later.